Okay, we're going to take a quick look, or maybe not so quick, a look at the installation sequence for the Ucity Canopy project with Nina Cooke John, 618 Design, ZGF, all the parties involved that have been working so hard to make this thing come true. And this sequence we're going to look at starts with the boots installed on the foundation plates and the pavers reinstalled and the field cleared, as it were. And I'm using the same fencing perimeter as for the foundation work, which seems to work well. It gives us plenty of room to do everything that we need to do. The first load that shows up is going to be the bases for ribbons 7 through 19, this eastern row, and they'll show up on a flatbed semi-truck, and they'll have stands such that they can be picked up with a forklift, brought over and placed down in this area, and then they can be fitted with their upper sections, the wood tuned up, and the LEDs installed, and basically gotten all ready. And we might want the 618 roll around gantries just to stabilize these while that's happening. And then once they're dressed, we've got a forklift here. This is a 5,000 pound capacity quad mast. It needs to be able to get the forks up to about 20 feet with a jib on it. And with that jib, we can use our hang points to lift the ribbons up off of their stands and bring them around and drop them into their boots. And it probably makes sense just to start at this end and work our way south. Although I am showing this one installed before that one. So I don't really think this sequence is super critical. In any event, once that's done, we'll be ready for the next load, which is the bases for the remaining canopy, or I'm sorry, the remaining ribbons, 1 through 8. And the tricky one is number 2, and number 2 is quite tall and can't go oriented in the same kind of vertical. It needs to kick over at an angle such that it stays under the 13.6 shipping height. So, and I did look at using a drop deck or a lowboy trailer, but it has it still has this upper section, then drops down and has a lower section, and it makes it harder to place all of the other ribbons. So I think it makes sense just to do a fancy stand for this number 2. And number 2 is also why we need a quad mast 20-foot forklift, because it is quite tall and it needs to be able to get up high enough to drop into its boot there. And so we'll put all these, prep all these on the ground and then install all of these, and then it's onto the canopy. And the canopy does actually fit in a 26-foot box truck, although it is pretty crammed in there. It probably makes sense just to get another one more load for the semi truck. And these will come with their ropes already installed. I don't have the ropes turned on just because it makes everything so much slower for my computer. So with the ropes turned off again, it's also easier to see. We're using that same jib, and with a rigging spider that we'll figure out at 618, be able to pick this from a single point right over its center of gravity. This canopy weighs about 800 pounds. And then we'll need some step ladders at the corners and a taller ladder to be able to disconnect the rigging. And all the rigging does need to be able to be disconnected from the underside. Since we won't be able to get to the actual jib, it'll be out over the top of the canopy. So maybe a span set with a shackle underneath or something like that too, so that we can disconnect from the underside. And anyway, once this is all set, it's lifted up and get it into place, and then go around and make up all the splices off of ladders. And then once that's done, somebody on the 12-foot ladder can get up underneath and disconnect the rigging, and then back the forklift away very carefully and get ready for the B canopy. And the B canopy is the heaviest one at about 1,200 pounds, and it does require a further out pick on the jib, although not too terrible. And once that's all bolted together on the ground and hooked up with its rigging, and I am showing it connected to the X's that support it, figuring that maybe it'll need at least one of these arches already put together, and since this one splices everything together, it's kind of like the whole deal here. but this is modeled with the center of gravity as based on, and the weight based on that being attached. So once this is all bolted up, it's a straight lift up into place, and then the same run around with the ladders and make up all the splices, and then disconnect the rigging and carefully back the forklift out of the way. And you can see there's plenty of room to do that. Then next up is the small canopy, the C canopy, which weighs about 600 pounds, and it's exactly the same procedure, bolted together on the ground where it's going to live, and then hook up the rigging and lift it up into place. And that is the show. So please let me know if you see anything that I missed, or maybe assumptions that I might be making that are not appropriate. But it looks pretty doable. I don't see any major problems with just using a forklift. I think a crane is going to be not the right choice, and the reason I say this is because a lot of the stuff is going to have to go in and under and around all of the bits that are sticking out. And a crane, all those things are going to be in the way, whereas a forklift can go underneath them. So I think a forklift is a more appropriate tool for the job, and we could obviously rent a person lift, a genie lift, or something like that. But I think that ladders actually are a little bit more flexible because they'll need to be moved around so much. And none of what we're talking about is so terribly high off the ground that it can't be reached with a ladder. So, yeah, that's the deal. Thanks for watching, and I will send out some PDFs as well. But I find that the video might help illustrate a lot more of the complexity. Okay, thanks.